so ich gesagt, mir ein paar Leute, eine Million jüdische Kinder, aber ich sage, die wird mich gefragt, sie sagt, wo sie kein Wunsch gewinnt in der Story. Jeden, die sind gewinnt in Business, sind die Kinder gegangen in Business. Heutige Zeiten kommen, sie gehen zu mir, im Geleit, und sagen, ich halte dich bei keinem Business. Der Klosenberg Gruppe, der Klosenberg hat mir gesagt, ich bin gewesen mit meinem Klosenberg Gruppe, ich bin damals gemacht in Deutschland, Schienenschein Suppleiter gewesen. Aber ich solche gewesen zu machen, als nicht den Schienenschein Suppleiter in einer anderen Stadt. Sie gewesen, sie geblieben Kinder gesäumen, ich kennt kein einziger, ich muss mit dem Ton dort. Wir haben solche gewesen, wegzustellen, der Rabbi ist rausgekommen vor uns, paar Talmiden, und nachher ist er zurückgekommen noch einmal, versuchen mit Talmiden. Und sie ist rausgekommen, die Zivur letztens von dem Rabbi, und das sagt, wir kennen uns sich nicht vorstellen. Ich muss keine Summe, wie du hast gesagt, muss sagen, aber es rettet von sich allein, und der Igel hat dort eine gewaltige Heilig in dem Usher, Helkoi, und die Mischpuche muss es da weggestellt, und der Leibische helft mir soll solche Sachen, sie sehen, wie steht in chsidische Sporen, als in die Zeit, kann man schon umwünschen, ein guter Mensch schon, dann solche Sachen zu sehen, dann kommen sie in Jerusalem, wir bilden bis am Nikdorf beim Heilen, wie meine Oma.
Rabbi Nosson Sherman, closely did it for Rabbi Ehrenreich Zatzal on the phone.
Hello? Hello? Okay, should I start? Charlie Olechalochi, the Antoli, the Art. I'm distressed over you, my brother. You're so pleasant to me. Lemel to me was like an older, much smarter brother. My first exposure to him was 60 years ago. I was a Rebbe in Turbadas to Flatbush, now Teratanima, and there was a chinuch question. And I was a second year, but I was told I must quote Reb Lemel. And then I found out, after a very short conversation, that I knew very, very little. For the last 60 years, I've been saying that Rabbi Lemel was the smartest man in Chinuch. There was nobody like him. He was a tremendous pikeach. Yesterday, I spoke to the administrator of another big Beis Yaakov school in Borough Park. And he told me, he said, I wasn't close to Rabbi Ehrenreich, but when I had a problem, I would call him. He always made the time for me. He told me what to do. He was always right. And Moshe Rabbeinu gave the brachas to the Shvatim. To Usher, he said, Baruch Nibonim Usher Yirutzui Echad. Usher, Rashi brings in the Sifra that it refers to the children of Usher. They were especially blessed. And Rashi says he doesn't know exactly what the Sifra means. And the Mephoshim explained that what was Rashi's question. This is through mean that Usher was great in numbers, population, was in the quality of the people, was in the wealth, was in their power. I think it means all of them. Let's look at the career of Rabbi Lemel Ehrenreich. 66 years. 66 years. He was the head of Beis Yaakov at Borough Park. During that time, probably 50,000 students, if not more. Probably more than 1,000 teachers. He hired them, he empowered them, he trusted them. He did all of that. Rabbi Kaplan said that without Rebbetzin Kaplan, there would be no Lakewood. And I think that without Rabbi Lemel, there would be no Rebbetzin Kaplan. He raised generations of Jewish children who were devoted to Torah, Yerushalayim. I once asked him, Lemel, what's the secret of your success? And he said, I know what I can do well, and I know my limitations, and I hire people to do what I cannot do well. He was not afraid to bring in really superior people and to trust them. He had no ego. All he cared about was success, the people of the Beis Yaakov, the success of Beis Yaakov himself, the success of the picture, the success of the great family. He brought in Rabbi Tzipirchik, Rabbi Lubart, Mrs. Shore, Mrs. Marcus, and even the last several years, Rabbi Frank. I spoke to somebody yesterday. My daughter was a teacher of Beis Yaakov for quite a few years. And Rabbi Lemel called her in. He wanted her to develop a certain program to train teachers in Talmidas. And she said, I can't do it. I don't feel secure. And he said, yes, you can. You can do it. And you will do it. And she did, and he supported her all the way. A principal of a big girls' school wrote an appreciation for Rabbi Ehrenreich. And quite a few years ago, Beis Yaakov commissioned a Sefer Torah to be written for him. And they had a journal where people, colleagues, leaders, friends, would write in memories of him, appreciations of him. And this is what this woman wrote. She said, I was a teacher in the Beis Yaakov. My first year was not a success. I was a failure. And I went into Rabbi Ehrenreich at the end of the year, and I said, I know you won't take me back next year. I was a flop. And he said, you are coming back next year. You are coming back. And she did. And she became a master teacher. And she became a principal. Many years later, a teacher, first year teacher, came to me at the end of the year and she said, I did not do well, I was a failure. I know you want to take me back next year. And the principal said, sit down. Let me tell you a story. Lemel, teachers, students, they felt awe, they felt reverent, respect for him. He was never angry, or at least never showed it. Never angry, never raised his voice. The lunchroom was rather unruly, as lunchrooms tend to be. He came into the lunchroom, and there was silence. He saw some paper towels on the floor. He went over, picked them up, walked over to the garbage can, dropped them into the garbage can, and left the room. He delivered a message. And after that, the dining room was clean. He was a fourth grade teacher. The class was undisciplined, the class was torturing him. Rabbi Ehrenreich came into the room, which he very seldom, they didn't come into classrooms habitually. He came into the classroom, sat down, and they said, if you have a bushel of apples, a bushel of good apples, but there's one rotten apple, you know what happens? The rotten apple spoils all the others. He said, there's a rotten apple in this class. I want each of you to make sure you should not be that rotten apple. And he left the room. A couple came to him. Husband and wife came to him to speak not about Beis Yaakov, not about the daughter of Beis Yaakov, but to speak about a son of theirs who was in the yeshiva, and they were thinking about switching him to a different yeshiva. And they spoke about the pros and the cons of this yeshiva, and how he's doing, et cetera, and so forth. And when they were finished, Rabbi Ehrenreich said very simply, switch. He didn't get into a discussion of the various yeshivas that they were talking about. He said, switch, because otherwise you'll look back and feel guilty that you didn't do it. That was his greatness as a wise counselor. He was able to cut away all the that can be questioned. You heard these two people talking about yes, it was really bothering them what they really had to hear. And he told them, switch. Not long ago, there was the principal of a major girls' school in Brooklyn who had to retire because of she would finish out the year, but she would not be able to come back. And there was a discussion. What do we get? Who do we try to recruit? Candidates? And some of the people involved in the discussion spoke to a daughter of mine, and she said, go to Rabbi Ehrenreich. Discuss it with Rabbi Ehrenreich. He'll tell you what to do. And it turned out that one of the main candidates was Usher, give a borough party. We should go to Rabbi Ehrenreich. He's going to let us take away his top teacher. And my daughter said to Rabbi Ehrenreich, we'll see. He heard about the different candidates. He heard about his own teacher, who was a candidate, and he told him, take her. Take her. She's good for the job. She'll do the job. You need somebody like her. And they hired her, and they're very happy. He once told me, he said, listen, I'm too old for this job. I can't take things so seriously anymore. I teach problem. I remember her mother. Her mother was exactly the same way. The fat Yiddish mother. That girl will be that way too. I learned over the years, you can't take everything seriously. You have to take everything with a grain of salt. And that was not because he did not take problems. He did. It almost never happened that Beis Yaakov would expel a Talmidah. If it was a problem, then that was the school's problem, that was his problem. But there was one case where there was no choice, they had to send the girl away. Ehrenreich couldn't do it until they arranged for her to a school where she could fit in there, she could be handled properly. That. Not only would he wait until he had a place for her to go, he paid the tuition so that she should be able to go there. There was a Yid, a Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi. He was a student of Rabbi Naftali Trop, the Rosh Yeshiva in Rad. And his 20s, there's serious cases, typhus, and no antibiotics, no big medical center in Rad. What there was, the kind of doctor was. There was no fever was going way high, 5 degrees, 6 degrees. There were a few of his Chaverim were in the room saying to him, the medicine, Rabbi Natoli's medicine. So run to the Chofetz, tell him what the situation is. And they went to the Chofetz Chaim, they told him. The Chofetz, the next street, they closed the door. And one of these was and the Chofetz Chaim do in the other room. Tell him what he's saying. What he cry out. This is what the Chofetz Chaim said. The Naftali, the Rabbi Rosh Yeshiva, don't remember his name. Let's call him Rabbi Yankov. Rabbi Yankov had a successful business. A Talmud Chacham. He heard that there was a yeshiva that was in danger of being forced to close because of financial difficulties. It was his business, raising money for the yeshiva. And this is what the Chofetz Chaim said. The Chofetz Chaim said, Rabbi Shalom, Yankov hat doch so viel getan, weil dass der Zug hat, was medical Jungerheit. Rabbi Shalom, he said, but Yankov did so much for you. Will you take away his grandson at such a young age? Rabbi Lemel is leaving us. Moshe Rabbeinu in his bracha said something else also. He said, Ki yomecha echa. Youth, yet youth, old age. Rabbi Lemel, in his old age, did not have the vigor, the physical vigor, but he was just as fresh, just as insightful, just as wise in his old age as he was when he was young. The last time I spoke was only a couple of weeks ago. I heard he was not well. He had a broken hip, but he was in the hospital, and he was in a rehab place. I called him up. We had a 20-minute conversation. He was as bright as ever. The body was failing him, but the essential Lemel was still there. The wisdom, the insight, the humor, everything was still there. Shomecha donecha. Rabbi Lemel, it's Yosher. It's Yosher to the medicine. Your loyal partner for almost 70 years. Be a Melech Yosher for your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. Be a Melech Yosher for Bas Yaakov. Melech Yosher for Frank, who came in, he was your Talmud, your partner, and now you're the Malach. Be a Melech Yosher for Klal Yisrael. Only the Rabbi Shalom knows how many, for all the people who came to basics, teachers, children, Rosh Yeshiva, Alabatim, couples. Who knows that nobody alive will ever know how many, only the Rabbi Shalom knows. He had Melech Yosher for all. Rabbi Lemel, das hat so viel getan, könnte Shalom, könnte nicht Yaakov and say, Rabbi Shalom, ich habe so viel getan für deine Wege, aber ich muss auf deine Kinder. Wie lang hebben ze net zeggen, waar als je nog als je van de kinderen die ook goed van heeft, geen procent van Josje.
Rabbi Menachem Franklin Abbas Yankee.
I speak as a Shliach Tzibur for 10,000 Talmidos of yours, Rabbi Ehrenreich, like their parents, for their parents and grandparents, for your Talmidos' children and grandchildren. I speak on their behalf. 10 days ago, I heard Rabbi Ehrenreich was in the hospital, which turned out to be his final visit. And I went to visit him. They told me his heart is weak. I said, Rabbi Ehrenreich, your heart, the greatest heart in Klal Yisrael, the heart that pumped Yirah Shemayim and Amunah and B'tachin into the souls of the Noshim Tzidkadiyos of Klal Yisrael that are today all over the globe. Your heart is weak. How could it be? If your heart can go weak, what can we say about our hearts? I'm not worthy to be masbid in Odom Gadol. Yet I had a schus this past 10 years to be mishamish Rabbi Ehrenreich. And I was wondering, what would Rabbi Ehrenreich want to be said by his hesped? The Gemara Moed Kotten, in fact, says Rav Ashi, a Hilig Rav Ashi, asked a certain person who would be masbid him, what are your thoughts? What are you going to say about me? So I'll only share a Dvar Torah that Rabbi Ehrenreich shared with me, and he used to say it. I'll start with it and I'll conclude with the Dvar Torah that he used to say, which I believe it was the essence of his unique chinuch vision and message. And it was a message that he lived with, that we just lost, but hopefully we can carry on. He said that in the Torah, we find that Yaakov Avinu had a relationship with Yosef HaTzadik. It was considered as Ben Zekunim. And Rashi says Ben Zekunim means he was a Ben Chakim. He taught him Torah. He taught Yosef HaTzadik Torah. He was a Ben Zekunim. But Rabbi Ehrenreich pointed out that Binyamin HaTzadik, his youngest son Binyamin, the Torah refers to him as Nafshay Kishuda B'Nafshay. His neshama was attached to the neshama of his father, as was Yaakov's attached to his son Binyamin. And he said, the Baal Turim says that Kshura is Gematria Torah. They taught Binyamin Torah. So he said there are two ways of teaching the younger generation. Two ways we impact our children, our students. One is Ben Chakim, you teach them the curriculum, you teach them the material. And all those A+, Aleph plus Talmidus will absorb it like a sponge. And the second way is Nafshay Kshuda B'Nafshay. We have to reach out to our Talmidim and connect with them. They have to be attached to us, and we have to be attached to them. And then we'll impact them. Then we'll make a difference to them. Then we'll change them. If we attach ourselves to them and they attach themselves to us. This is Rabbi Ehrenreich's unique chinuch message. Chinuch is more about connecting to the child, to the student. to your son and daughter. They'll always remember. They may not remember the content of what you taught, but they'll always remember how they felt when you taught them. They'll always remember how you made them feel. This was his go'inus in chinuch. Chinuch to Rabbi Ehrenreich meant forever. Chinuch meant when that young child walks away from you, there's a possibility they'll remember that event forever. And nafshay kshuda ben nafshay was how Rabbi Ehrenreich, every interaction with another ben adam, was how will they remember this forever. There was in discipline, of course, as a principal, as a mora, as a teacher, we're faced from time to time with discipline issues. He always said, if the student doesn't understand what he did wrong, and if he doesn't feel the consequences fair, we failed them, because they will forever carry it in their heart that we wronged them. Nafshay kshuda ben nafshay. He was so sensitive to the hearts of the Talmidos. They need to understand that it was fair before we can give a consequence. Otherwise, you can't do it. And there were many times when he told us, you cannot give no consequence because the child won't understand why she deserved it. Chinuch means forever. Once the Talmidah developed anxiety that she couldn't walk into a stairwell to get up to her classroom, the third floor. Rabbi said, it's not a problem. We'll move the classroom to the first floor, and we'll move that grade downstairs so that this child should have a classroom. Nafshay kishulu b'nafshay. That was his chinuch. He felt the pain of this child and her parents. Not her fault. It needs some work. But the solution is simple. Move the school. That'll move the student. Parents would sometimes come to apply. The situation was so complex. The Rabbi Ehrenreich knew we weren't equipped to handle it. Yet, once in a while, he would accept them anyway, and I asked him, why? Why would we accept this student? We know it's too complex for us. He said, because no one else will take them. If no one else will take them, we will take them. It's our chayis. Nafshay kshura b'nafshay. I'll end with another word that he used to say, Hu hoya oimer. By Oz Yoshia Moshe B'nai Yisrael, as the Shira Azois, Rashi says, Mikan l'tchiyas ha'meisim min ha'Torah. We learn tchiyas ha'meisim from these words, Oz Yusha. Moshe will sing, not just that he sang, but he will sing when Mashiach comes in tchiyas ha'meisim. Rabbi Ehrenreich asked, why here? Why here by Oz Yosha does the Torah teach us about tchiyas ha'meisim? And he said, there's certain events in history which make such an impact on the future of the world that we won't even understand the full effect of that event until the end of time. By Tchiyas HaMeisim, when we look back at Yetzias Mitzrayim, at Kriyas Yamsuf, at these fundamental events, and understand how far-reaching it was throughout the Davis for 6,000 years. But until Tchiyas HaMeisim, we don't fully understand the impact. Said Rabbi Ehrenreich, this is chinuch. We try our best, but we have to understand we won't see the full impact until Tchiyas HaMeisim. Until Tchiyas HaMeisim, when we look back at that smile, and that helping hand, and the kind word, that we extend it to another person, not just a Talmud, but a person. And you extend yourself, and you give him your heart, and your nafshay kshuda b'nafshay. We don't know the ripple effect, how that's going to spread to other people, to the next generation and the following generation, the Doiris. As Usher Moshe, we call it Chiyas HaMesim in a Torah. Rabbi Ehrenreich said that's Chinuch, because Rabbi Ehrenreich, Chinuch meant forever. And that's why he was Eicher, to establish such a Moisid, that when a parent applied last week and I asked her where did she go to school, she said she went to Beis Yaakov under Rabbi Ehrenreich, as did her mother, as did her grandmother, all under Rabbi Ehrenreich. Rabbi Ehrenreich was zeicher to see 4 generations of chinuch. He stewarded the chinuch of the grandparents, of the next generation of parents, of the next daughter, and then now the Ehrenreich that's coming in. He saw all the changing generations, and he oversaw their chinuch. What a monumental loss to Klal Yisrael. What a loss. And we now have lost the Minal that we could turn to with a crisis that he's had numerous times before. We lost a Minal that consulted with the likes of Rabbi Aaron Kotler on how to establish our Beis Yaakov. With Rabbi Moshe, with Rabbi Yaakov. He had intimate conversations about chinuch, habonos. This is the Rabbi Aaron that we lost. Yet, I think we could say, Rabbi Ehrenreich, there are certain people that we will not know the impact of those people and their kindness and their love and their heart and their chinuch until the end of time by Chiyas HaMesim with Mashiach Tzedkenu, and we can look back and see Rabbi Ehrenreich. The doiris that you touched, you have no idea. The world that you transformed, we have no idea. But when Mashiach should come in, we'll look back and see the impact of the godless of Rabbi Ehrenreich. B'Chodesh Elul was upon us. And in Elul we wish Ksivu Chsim Etayra, Rabbi Ehrenreich, on behalf of Klal Yisrael, on behalf of your Talmidos, on behalf of the families, on behalf of your special mishpacha that you spoke so highly of all the time. All the time. We wish you a Ksivu Chsim Etayra. As you go up in Shemayim, I'm sure you will receive the rewards of your tremendous efforts, of your tremendous ahava, your tremendous mesirus nefesh, that is still reaping benefits ad Chiyas HaMesim. You should be a Meil Joshua for your mishpacha, and you should be Meil Joshua for your mishpacha that's here today, and that's all over the globe. You know more than anyone the problems that we face. Be Meil Joshua, be davening from the Kisei covered. That girls should grow up Erlich, mit Yirei Shemayim, mit Amunah, with a special Shvisi Hashem Lenegdi Summit in their hearts, as you had in your heart. And mit Hashem, Kanat Chiyas HaMesim in the Torah, is also getreffen Shein, Gichim, at Chiyas HaMesim, Vis HaMashiach, and at that time, will be Bila and Moses and Netzach, Mochal Kim Dim and Kol Pachim.
Rav Reuven Wolf, President Beis Yaakov.
I got involved in Beis Yaakov around 10 years ago. At that time, Beis Yaakov faced a real financial crisis. There were pictures in the newspapers. Beis Yaakov was a padlock on it. And my wife, she Gebenched, asked me to get involved. I met with Rabbi Ehrenreich. Together we went to the Novominsker Rebbe Zatzal. And with his tremendous respect that every house in Borough Park has for him, not only the Noshim Tzidkonis, but the husbands. We went around to all the people who are in a position to help, and they all stepped forward in such a big way because they love Rabbi Ehrenreich. And we were able, with Zoiche, to bring Rabbi Frank, was at that time a Rosh Koil in Minneapolis. And we brought him to the board meeting, and he had never done any work in Chinuch HaBamis. And after we have a Kasla Toiv, Mr. George Carfunkel, who, as he stepped out, said, "This man is gold. If you don't hire him, I will." And we hired Rabbi Frank. And Rabbi Ehrenreich told me, "You should know, everybody tells me, why don't you put a successor in place?" At that time, I was in his 80s. He says, "Everybody comes with their own chinuch ideas. But we in Beis Yaakov have a way where we can." I was able to be mechanech the doors of the Baba roof, the doors of the Betzina roof, and the doors of the Russian immigrant who knew nothing. And for that, I need somebody to be able to bring over the Messiah that I got from Gedol Yisrael. And Rabbi Frank sat at his feet and literally learned from him. And he gave it to him with such a hava, such a neimus. And Baruch Hashem, we were zeicher to rebuild Beis Yaakov. Rabbi had told me I always wanted to walk into the sunset with Beis Yaakov should be blooming. And Baruch Hashem, his machshava was this kind in the biggest way. And Rabbi Ehrenreich, from all the people the Gedolim had the schus to be close to, you are one of the people, you pikras, you neimus. I use it every day, not only in Tzochet but in my business. Such a klokheit, such a goodness. He saw the good in everybody. And when a child was blind, he took them in. A child was handicapped, he took them in, like Rabbi Frank says, because nobody else would. That's the great God, Rabbi Ehrenreich, that we lost. And that was made Rabbi Ehrenreich, the beloved person. He will always be in all of our hearts. And in B'Shem the Hanhola, B'Shem the board, we asked Mechila if we didn't properly respect you in the way we should. But I know, I can see in front of my eyes the smile on your face, saying, sure, I for sure forgive you. And the Rosh Helfen should be made to Yosher, that Beis Yaakov should continue in the way you put it, you have weggestellt, the Deures. You should be made to Yosher for the beautiful family, for the entire school, parent body, the children, Ubilam Obazon Netzach, Umoch Hashem Limat Kol Ponim Nam Oven.
Rav Nachman Blasbalg, Administrator Beis Yaakov, Divrei Preide and Kaim Ulerachman.
I had a gewaltige kesher with Rabbi Ehrenreich. Not only the last 10 years or more that we worked over here as administrator, but in all the years that my children were going here to school, I spent maybe 15, 16 years on the board and in the Vada Chinuch, and was zeicher to be mishamish, the Ilun Rav Rabbi Ehrenreich. My father Lashon once told me that there was an Asifa from Gedolim in Eretz Yisrael, and Rav Cheskel Abramsky, Zachat Tzadik Levucha, asked the Kol HaNesufim who they thought had the biggest hashpah from the Friedrich Gedolis on our Doris. And everybody had a different mahalach. This one made Kolim, this one made Torah, so forth and so on. When they all finished, Cheskel Abramsky says, I don't think you're right. So I said, who is? He says, Sarah Schneer had the most impact on our Doris. Without her, there would not have been Torah at all in Klal Yisrael. I think it's a zero exaggeration to be able to say the same thing about Rabbi Ehrenreich, who was a mechanech with so many Doris, Moiras, Yiddish mamas, Yiddish shtibben spread out through the entire world. I want to remind you, Ehrenreich, of something that you once told me. It was a Milsa de Bedichas. You were sitting next to me by a Levayah, and then you told me that whenever the speakers reach the point where they say it should be a Milas Yosha, you said that you chuckle, you laugh a little bit. I said, why? He told me there was a Yid that was Baruch Shem Litzliach in business. His son got married, he had supported him in Koil, and then he told the son it's time to start working. The son said, no, he wants to continue sitting and learning, please Tati support me. And he continued, and this happened with the next generation, and finally the last generation, and the Yid said, he says, you know, I didn't have any Menicha in this world, but at least Mitzvah Hashem, L'chended I will have Menicha. But now they come and they say, Tata Zah, Malis Yosha, Zah, get the Beiter, for instance, I won't have Menicha there either. Rabbi Ehrenreich, it's not the time now for Klal Yisrael, in all seriousness, that you should be looking for Menicha. No one else understood the problems for today's Dar as well as you did. First of all, es soll kein Mensch geschehen bei Klal Yisrael, es soll vermachen die meisten Teure, und es schielen nach für einen Tag. Und der Regierung soll schon kein Schimmschlied auf die Kinder von seinen Kindern. Und so ist dann ein gute Beite von der Jakob Steuerpark, mit Gif, der Reich, soll sein Mamschach sein, bis wir es am Mashiach sind, keine Gemeinde. In the Numen von staff, all the parents, the teachers, Kolakol, the Beit Mechile, Tomer wird nicht mehr Kugelwein, also ich wollte gedacht zu sein, fast ein Mensch. Aber ich sage, ich kann sagen, gibt es der Rat im Eichel sein, und es Eure sein, Male, und sagen, gibt der Beter für uns alle. Und noch Hashem dem auch gepoinen will, so nicht so, sie kein Urlachen. Ayem Larachmem Shoichai B'Rayim Hamtzayim Nichun Chaynu Kavas Kam Fayashtenu Malus Kidoshim Mitahorem Kizoy Kiya Mazhirem Ist Nishmas Moirayni Avusher Lemel Ben Yitzchak Shehulach Loilumay Bari Shekol HaKulo Misfallen mal wieder im Satten zu geben in der Basura Schlusoi ich kann einen Teil nicht Schlusoi wir gehen mal rachmen ja sie da ist ich kann auf mir lumen it's heim ist nicht Schlusoi ab neu hinach Schlusoi mir hab ich schon mal mich gewei
The Creator will be in Wellwood Cemetery in Long Island in Shiva, 1754 East 29th Street. We ask everyone to please open up 46th Street so we can walk straight down. Men should go first and the women should follow. Please open up 46th Street so we can continue with the procession. Thank you.
Ich habe gesagt, ich habe ist mein Räume da drin macht sich nicht in der Reihe kaputt. Ich habe schon vergessen, dass ich das Ziel das andere Leute